The official announcement painted a picture of routine team selection, just another roster unveiling for Team USA basketball. Behind the carefully managed press releases and sanitized social media posts, however, a different story was unfolding. What transpired during those closed training sessions wasn't the harmonious gathering the public relations machine wanted you to believe. The stakes couldn't be higher. We're examining the roster that will represent the United States at the 2026 World Cup, the foundation for the Los Angeles 2028 Olympic campaign. This isn't simply about the next competition cycle. This represents the framework for an entire decade of women's basketball at the international level. And the dynamics that emerged from that gymnasium have fundamentally altered the landscape. Before we examine the reported confrontations that allegedly occurred in the facility's corridors, it's essential to understand the journey Caitlyn Clark undertook to reach this moment. The context of her struggle makes her current position all the more significant. The narrative surrounding Clark had shifted dramatically by mid-2025. Critics had begun celebrating what they perceived as her inevitable decline. Her season had become a medical nightmare. There's no gentler way to characterize it. A left quadriceps strain, followed by a groin tear, capped by a right ankle sprain. The injuries accumulated with devastating frequency. She appeared in just 13 games that entire season. 13 games for a player who had shattered 62 league records during her rookie campaign. A player whose presence had fundamentally transformed the sport's economic model. The forced absence was torturous. Clark herself acknowledged the psychological toll, stating publicly that she would have gladly endured 10 consecutive poor performances just to be on the court. That mentality reveals something profound about competitive drive, the kind of obsessive determination that separates elite athletes from everyone else. Her critics sensed vulnerability. Whispers circulated throughout basketball circles that her explosive first step had diminished, that her signature long-range accuracy would never return to previous levels, that the player who had captivated audiences was gone forever. Those assessments would prove spectacularly incorrect. Fast forward to the present Team USA training camp. The facility was populated with basketball royalty, coaches, talent evaluators, and legends of the game. Sue Bird stood courtside, arms folded, expression inscrutable. Cheryl Lawson observed with the intensity of someone making career-defining decisions. The atmosphere carried weight. Everyone understood what this moment represented. When Clark entered the facility, conversations ceased. The question hanging in everyone's mind was identical. Had the injuries fundamentally compromised her abilities? Was she tentative? Was she still physically limited? She received the basketball, 2 dribbles to gather herself. Then she elevated from 35 feet beyond the arc. No hesitation whatsoever. Perfect rotation on the ball. Textbook trajectory. The shot connected cleanly, the net making that distinctive sound that silences all doubt. The response was immediate and visceral, but that single shot transcended mere scoring. It was a declaration, a statement to every doubter, every skeptic, every person who had prematurely written her off. Sue Bird exchanged a knowing glance with Cheryl Lawson. The rust that everyone had anticipated simply didn't exist. Her conditioning appeared elite level. This is where the narrative becomes complicated. Because while Clark was reestablishing her dominance, Angel Reese was reportedly operating under certain assumptions about her own role. Reese's rebounding prowess is unquestioned. Her motor, her marketing appeal, these are established facts. But Team USA operates by different rules than domestic league play. This is the Olympics, the World Cup. This is basketball's equivalent of an all-star team where simply outworking opponents isn't sufficient against the world's best players. The roster announcement must have landed like a thunderclap. The starting lineup: point guard Caitlyn Clark, shooting guard Jackie Young, small forward Breanna Stewart, power forward Nafisa Collier, center Aja Wilson. Read that configuration again and consider its implications. Clark listed as a starter. Reese nowhere near the first unit, positioned on the bench alongside Sabrina Ionescu and Paige Bueckers. According to sources with knowledge of camp dynamics, the reaction from Reese's camp was not gracious acceptance. Reports suggest genuine anger, a sense of disrespect. After a season where she produced significant numbers, albeit on a struggling team, she apparently felt entitled to that starting position. The word entitled keeps appearing in these accounts, and it's worth examining the basketball logic here. The front court consists of Breanna Stewart and Aja Wilson, two players with legitimate claims to being among the greatest to ever play the sport. Which one gets benched for Angel Reese? The reigning MVP Aja Wilson? Absolutely not. Stewart, with her championship pedigree? Impossible. But the most revealing aspect wasn't the roster itself. It was the contrasting responses. While Reese allegedly focused on rotations and respect and playing time, Clark was building relationships with teammates, running drills until the facility closed, demonstrating leadership qualities. The contrast was stark and unmistakable. Cheryl Lawson and Sue Bird witnessed these divergent approaches. The coaching decision became straightforward. Lawson stated explicitly that Clark is 100% healthy and prepared to lead the squad toward gold medal competition. That's not diplomatic coach speak. That's an endorsement with profound implications. The reasoning is obvious when you examine the evidence. During scrimmages, Clark distributed passes that dismantled defensive schemes. Her court vision hasn't just returned, it's somehow improved. She's reading plays multiple seconds before they develop. Her chemistry with Jackie Young is genuinely frightening from an opponent's perspective. They were dissecting defenses methodically and ruthlessly. Meanwhile, reports on Reese suggested focus on individual statistics and personal touches. The kind of mentality that proves problematic in international competition. That approach gets you sent home, or in this case, permanently attached to the bench. Reese is unquestionably a competitor who expects to be the featured player. She's accustomed to being the primary option. But there's a distinction between confidence and delusion. Team USA requires a general, not someone demanding special treatment. Clark's post-practice comments revealed a transformed mindset. She stated that her body feels better than it has in months, a quote that should genuinely concern every opponent in the league. A healthy, motivated Caitlyn Clark operating with something to prove represents a matchup nightmare. She discussed how the injury period taught her patience and how to be a superior teammate. No complaints, no self-pity. She worked through the adversity. Now she's reaping the rewards. The starting position belongs to her. The team's direction is hers to shape. The future is hers to define. For those questioning whether she earned this opportunity, stop. Review the footage. Examine her mechanics. Observe her leadership. She is the world's best point guard. Period. Even compromised by injury, she remained superior to 90% of the league. Now that she's fully recovered, the competition doesn't stand a chance. But the critical question remains, can Angel Reese subordinate her ego for the team's benefit? Can she accept a bench role for the collective good? Or will this evolve into a locker room problem that undermines Team USA from within? The current atmosphere is tense. The coaching staff is monitoring the situation carefully. If attitudes don't shift, don't be surprised if adjustments happen before the team even departs for World Cup competition. Sue Bird specifically mentioned that Clark's speed has returned, that explosive burst that everyone questioned after the groin injury. We knew she could shoot. We knew she could distribute. But could she blow past defenders after that injury? The answer is definitively yes. In fact, she appears faster and stronger than before. She utilized that recovery time to rebuild her body. She's not the slight rookie anymore. She's a conditioned athlete. Let's examine the bench situation more closely, because this reveals the real dynamics. Look at the names coming off that bench. Sabrina Ionescu, Kelsey Plum, Paige Bueckers, Aliyah Boston. These are franchise cornerstones. These are superstars, and they're accepting their roles graciously. They're supportive. They're enthusiastic. So why is Angel Reese the only one reportedly expressing dissatisfaction? Why is she the only one appearing resentful? It comes down to branding and rivalry. Reese has constructed her entire public identity around being Clark's rival, being the alternative queen. But when you examine that depth chart and see Clark listed first and Reese listed 11th, that rivalry begins to look decidedly one-sided. That's painful. That's an ego check of massive proportions. But this is the national team. There's no space for individual egos. There's only room for gold medals. If you can't align with that mission, you get left behind. It's that straightforward. Leaked reports suggest that during scrimmages, exchanges became heated. Trash talk is normal in competitive basketball, but this was personal. This was about establishing hierarchy. And repeatedly, Caitlyn Clark let her performance provide all the answers necessary. A step-back three in defensive pressure. A no-look pass to Aja Wilson for a dunk. She was systematically dismantling the practice squad, making an unmistakable point. I am the starter. I am the leader. Accept it. The coaching staff loved that fire. They want that killer instinct, but directed toward opponents, not toward the coaching staff. That's the fundamental difference. Clark is battling against the world. Reese appears to be battling against the system, and the system always prevails. We must also acknowledge the chemistry with Aliyah Boston. They were teammates on the Fever. Boston witnessed what Clark endured. Boston saw the private moments when injuries kept mounting. Seeing Boston's support, that bond, it reveals everything about genuine team dynamics. Clark mentioned that the injury period was isolating. She felt alone. But returning to this environment, receiving support from players like Boston, Stewart, and Bird, it healed her, not just physically, but emotionally. She's playing with joy again, and a joyful Caitlyn Clark is a dangerous Caitlyn Clark. She hasn't rested since the season concluded. She's been grinding while others vacationed. She's been studying film while others posted social media content. And it shows. Her basketball IQ is extraordinary. She knows where teammates should be before they know it themselves. So here's the reality for Angel Reese's supporters. You can express anger. You can leave negative comments. You can claim unfairness. But the footage doesn't lie. The production doesn't lie. Team USA is about winning championships. It's about dominance. And right now, the best chance for victory is with the ball in Caitlyn Clark's hands. Period. The coaching staff understands this. The players understand this. And deep down, even Angel Reese understands this. The question is whether she can handle it. Can she mature sufficiently to say, I'll be the best bench rebounder in history? Or will she create destruction? We're witnessing legacy construction in real time. 2026 is going to be compelling drama, and Caitlyn Clark is the director, producer, and star. The nightmare year is officially over. The redemption tour has commenced, and if you're standing in her path, whether you're a French or Australian opponent or a resentful teammate on the bench, you're going to get run over. This isn't the same person who entered the league. This is a woman who has endured tremendous adversity and emerged forged in steel. So I need your perspective. Did the coaches make the correct decision benching Angel Reese? Is she being treated unfairly? Or is reality simply asserting itself? And is Caitlyn Clark truly back to MVP form? Or is this just practice hype? Share your thoughts in the comments right now because this debate is just beginning and your voice matters in this conversation. And listen, if you want authentic analysis of the WNBA that mainstream networks won't provide, if you want the real insider perspective, you need to engage with this content and subscribe. Don't let them control the narrative. We'll see you in the next one.